Hello, I'm Doug Benedict, and welcome to the Butler Esports interview series, where we're interviewing sports leaders, owners, and industry experts on the evolving world of esports. Today's interview is with Josh Mason. Josh is the Vice President of Marketing Strategy at Indy 11. Josh is a graduate of Ball State University, where he received his bachelor's in telecommunications sales and management. And Josh also received his MBA from Indiana Wesleyan University. Welcome. Nice to have you.
Thank you for having me, Doug. Appreciate you having me on.
Of course. So we'll just jump right in. Before we get into Indy 11 and all that, take us back to the, beginning of your work. How did you start out in the sports industry?
I didn't. That's the easiest way to put it. I didn't start out in the sports industry. I'd be the first to tell you, I left Ball State University, obviously with a telecommunications degree. I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I left university. I worked for a company called Tour Design, which is based here in Indianapolis, still Carmel to be fair now. But I did media for concert tours. So that was where I started. I've just spent a lot of time at Deer Creek. I was in my 20s. I was more interested in trying to figure out life than I was trying to figure out a career. At that time, I left that career and I actually spent about a 2.5-year span on the road as a tour director for a travel club. So back, Doug, this is going to predate me a little bit, but back when there was an airline called ATA based out of Indianapolis, there was a company called Ambassador Travel Club. So I was a tour director and spent 2.5 years just traveling the world with other Hoosiers, if you will, taking them on vacation. Because I thought if there's anything I'm going to do with my youth, it's going to be wasting it on having fun in different parts of the world and understand what I gained from it. At the time, it was selfish, but what I gained from it was a true love and appreciation of Indianapolis, for one, and secondarily, a worldly view of lots of things, because I saw and experienced the world in a different way that you don't get in a college education or without the sense of experience. So that's what I did. And several years later, almost 20 years later, here I am working for a soccer organization, which is basically my other passion. So hope that answers your question, but I said I have a very interesting career path.
Absolutely. It sounds like an interesting journey. So through your journey, your travels, everywhere you've been and ending up here, favorite projects, favorite things you've gotten to do, what you've gotten to work on?
Well, besides the Indy 11, which I still consider a project every day, until we're the biggest draw in town, my work will always be never undone. I've been a part of a lot of startups. And so I get really excited with new ideas and new concepts. So I helped start a liquor distributor here in town a number of years ago. I did the same thing a number of years ago with a marketing agency out of New York. Both were exhilarating because there's a lot of energy around new ideas, innovation, and those things excite me too. I like to build. So those two organizations for me were really good fits because that's where my skill sets really lie. And so I really enjoyed these two experiences only because I get to put my thumbprint on what the organizations became culturally, as well as their success. So probably my two favorite projects were those two in particular, but I've worked for a lot of great companies. At Starbucks Coffee Corporate, I spent almost 5 years. And to give you my background, I spent about 18 years in beverages, of all things. So not exactly a direct correlation to working for a sports organization, but in there, I was a salesman. I was a sales and marketing trainer for 3.5 years, which was a great experience as well, because it's had a direct influence on my current role, because behavior is a big part of training and getting behavior adoption. And that I really apply a lot of that knowledge to what I do now in my everyday from a marketing and fan experience perspective. So that was kind of my day-to-day, 18 years of that. And then to come to my little bit of my background is I actually helped start the Breakout Battalion, which is the supporters club for Indy 11, which actually predates the team. So I've been around soccer in the state as a coach, as a player. My kids play in a very meaningful way for a long time. Then obviously with the opportunity to support a actual real team in the city, got myself really involved with the club. And so when this opportunity came about, I felt like it was a natural fit for me at least to try to see what I could do to help make our club even better.
Absolutely. Clearly have a passion.
Try.
Yeah. So the targets of Indy 11 now, like, you said it, you consider it a project every day until you are, the best in town, right? So that being one of the goals, what are some of the other goals that you work towards?
Well, I've been in the organization almost 2 years this July. A lot of the work I've been centered on has been data centric. I think one of the most important values or I should say, assets we have as an organization is the data of our fans. And there's two things that come with that. Number one is a sense of responsibility to ensure that the data is being used for good and not evil. I know that sounds, I worry about the big brother aspects as much as anybody else. But the way we use the data about our fans is we ensure that we're using the data to enhance the fan experience, to make things easier, to make things better, to make sure that they're not receiving messages that are not relevant to them. So it's never with the intent of the big brother aspect of learning for the sake of learning, but it's really learning for the sake of ensuring that we're meeting clients' needs. And I say clients as in supporters of our fans. So the data project's been really, really big for me, but also fan experience. We shifted from Michael Carroll Stadium, which was an outdoor experience, to Lucas Oil Stadium. Lucas Oil Stadium for soccer, well, it's a beautiful stadium built for football. It's just not the kind of football that we play. So that being said, we have to retrofit an experience into the Colts space, to be very fair. And so one of my challenges is how do we make it feel like it's not a Colts game and think differently about our product? And that's, I've spent a lot of time spending a lot of work ensuring that our experience is authentic to what we are as a club, and that our club identity and culture shine through in our experience. So those are big projects we hope to have a lot of big launches for in 2020, clearly a little bit on a hold, but at a certain point in time, we'll be able to launch those items.
Absolutely. And that hold is right into my next question of how has this whole COVID-19 experience, pandemic kind of affected your operations, with traditional soccer?
Sure. I mean, it's just like everybody else, it's been a huge disruption. But rather than make excuses for what I can't control, I worry about what I can control. And so we've done a lot of work, and we're making sure that we're getting new and interesting content to our fans, to people who care about our club. And to be very fair, we had started our season. We started our season with a huge win over Memphis 901 FC, which has an owner and a very famous goalkeeper named Tim Howard that we put 3 goals on. Nice. So I'd say we had one hell of a start to our season. To feel like the wind got pulled out of our sails is an understatement. We think we have a team this year specifically that could really win it all. And we are bullish to get back on the field, and not for the sake of safety, though. We know very well if we're going to have games that we have to address the safety issue for fans first and foremost above all other things. We don't address safety. You don't feel good about leaving your house and coming down to watch an Indy 11 game. Then we're not doing our jobs. Secondarily, too, social distancing is not a problem in Lucas Oil Stadium when you only have 10 to 12, to 15,000 fans coming to any given game. We can spread you right out. You want some elbow room? We got plenty of seats for you. So we have some real built-in advantages in the same way that make us thankful for the Lucas Oil Stadium experience at the same time. But yeah, clearly a big disruption, but it's also made us think differently about our business. And what are the things we need to do to diversify our revenue? What are the things we need to do to be things that we can have on the ready to diversify our offerings? Sports can be very one-dimensional. Obviously, hey, sport team, go about your business, right? We want to make sure we're meeting fans on different levels, and it's actually forced us to think very differently about our overall business model.
So thinking differently brings us to the esports realm.
Sure.
You partnered with the Indiana Soccer Association for
Correct.
The inaugural Indiana Soccer E-Cup. What was that all about? How did it go?
Well,
what was it like?
Yeah, great. Very much a youth-driven initiative. Indiana Soccer is a great partner of ours. And granted, I will be the first to tell you, as I've met with Butler Esports on numerous occasions, we're very much exploring the esports space, just trying to determine where we fit into it in the city landscape. I would first say I'm bullish on doing something here in 2020 if we can get it done. I think esports plays an important part of the overall sports experience. I think that it's easy through esports to get people even more interested in soccer potentially, whether it be physical or the unphysical aspects. If you like playing FIFA 2020, so do I. I'd be happy to play online. So do half of our players, to be fair. So we're trying to use the assets of our players. Right now, the USL, which is the league we play in, has an EUSL FIFA Cup. We just completed our Rocket League tournament. Now we're on to FIFA, and I'd be curious what's next. So I'm sure our league, as much as our club, are looking at esport opportunities.
So after this is all over, do you see it continuing? Do you see
esports in particular? Sure, absolutely.
Well, the interest, I guess I would say.
Yeah. I would say, well, here's the thing. The interest is there already. It's already a proven model. If you see how many millions of people who play online and Twitch and the growth of different platforms, I have children. I grew up gaming to a degree, right? So I still occasionally get to play FIFA when my kids aren't occupying the Xbox themselves. So I know the space. I know the value of the space. I understand the investment necessary to be successful in the space. So we've not stepped into it yet because we don't have a fully baked plan that says this is Indy 11's stake in the esports space in a meaningful way. We're looking to do that, but we want to make sure we're doing it in a sustainable way. And it actually has been nice to participate in the EUSL. We've had great participation. We've had a lot of viewers, so it shows that there's an appetite for it. And so it really just fuels the fire more than anything else.
So since you've all just kind of taken your first step in and all that, and you said you talked to us and you probably talked to other people, what is some advice or some advisement that you were given when stepping into this, arena for maybe people in other organizations who are looking at it, but kind of hesitant?
Sure. Well, I think you got to figure out where you want to be in the space because there's a lot of different ways in which you can contribute to it. And I also will warn people that it's actually kind of a privileged space because not everyone has the ability to gain access to an Xbox or a PlayStation or have a PC to be able to game at home. So it is limiting. If you're not of a higher income bracket, you might not have to be able to participate in gaming. So I've always tried to make it, first and foremost, just like we do with soccer and some of the initiatives we're working on now as a club, you want to make it more accessible to more people, bottom line. So we want to make sure we're assisting in that space as much as anything else. Secondarily, we're trying to figure out as a professional sports team, where do we want to live within the sports e-gaming world? I'd be the first to tell you that I don't want to be limited to FIFA and Rocket League, though they're the most relevant games to what we do. But I also know they have some of the smaller footprints. They're probably considered tier B or C as opposed to Dota or League of Legends or Smash Brothers even. I mean, there's so many games now but they're also at the same time, some of them are fleeting, right? You'll have a game that's out for a year and it'll be popular for a year and you'll see a tail or a drop off. I mean, Fortnite's probably a decent example of that, where I used to see the affinity for the game was so large that I think Epic Games really hit a home run with that. But then ultimately, you only can do so many things to update your game. And then the relevancy tends to fall off. And what does that do to your revenue? What does that do to you as an esports person? Do you want to have people in that space? What's your investment level in that space if it does continue to decline? So we're trying to be very thoughtful in terms of how we do this. There's kids, there's adults. I mean, there's different gaming leagues in town. The Indy Gaming League in particular, great opportunity for people who are in their 20s who want to game with other people on a social level, provide a great solution in the city. So there's a lot of different ways you can do it. And also you can just jump online and play anybody under God's green earth. So there's really it's limitless. And I really want to make sure we're putting some guardrails in terms of what we're doing to ensure that whatever we're doing it successfully.
Absolutely. So, speaking of revenue and, profit, everybody, it's the goal of, organizations and what you need to do to survive. So where do you see like the highest or the most opportunity for, say, an organization like yourself or other organizations when it comes to getting into this esports world? Where, are we looking at ads? Are we looking at sponsorships? Are we looking at,
Sure. It's really all the above, right? So what we're good as an organization, we have a brand, right? First and foremost. So Indy 11 needs brand growth. Applying esports to just puts one more thing under the umbrella. If you look at a lot of professional clubs throughout the world in soccer, it's not unheard of that you would have multiple sports under the same umbrella. In South America specifically, there's I forget the name of the club. It starts Racing Santander, I think is the name of the club. But everything, swimming, badminton, everything's under the same umbrella of that racing club. So it doesn't mean we can't do the same thing with Indy 11. You could be Indy 11 badminton. You could be Indy 11 Parcheesi. We could be Indy 11 whatever board game you could think of. So those are all things that are very applicable to what we do, because if anything, what we do really well is build a sense of community. And so that's what our brand is based on. I don't know if you can see my crest. Clearly, we're based on our community here in Indy. And so there's no reason why we shouldn't continue our community efforts to launch into more spaces. So that's one concept of this. There is sponsorship. That's also a huge portion of this. I mean, eyeballs and affinity for brands is something we can help build. That's important. In events, we're pretty good at events too. So plus we have this opportunity with 11 Park, which is our potential new soccer stadium in downtown Indianapolis, including sports in it in some capacity. So all things that are being explored. Nothing's landed, but I mean, all things that we are definitely considerate of as we're looking forward to 2020 and beyond.
So this new facility, are you looking at including a space for esports?
I mean, I can't, it's not my money, nor is it my building, but I would say if my recommendation, if anything, would be to somehow look at an event space or some kind of inclusion of esports in the space in some capacity, because there will be residential around the area as well as part of this larger project. So it certainly could be filled with 20-somethings and kids to also have a facility in downtown Indy to be able to e-game in. So it makes sense, but it's, again, not my investment, and I would heavily advise it to be part of our overall experience.
Absolutely. And you kind of spoke to this earlier, about the guardrails and whatnot and exploring different titles. And you mentioned Rocket League and you mentioned FIFA and you're always exploring, right? But are there other titles that you have seen that interest in prior to this or after you've had these, tournaments already?
For me, it's like you said, it's not about always the sport that esports. It should be all encompassing. It's not just the sports that are directly related to what we do. Like I said, Rocket League and FIFA are phenomenal games. I'm terrible at both, but I enjoy them. But like I said, they're minimal in comparison to a League of Legends or a Dota, the more strategic-based games out there. And as I said before, there's so many new games entering this space on a regular basis that that developers are just clamoring for you to get into in some capacity to get the same growth that a Fortnite did, where it's really about driving revenue through add-ons and the things you buy through the game as a revenue stream as opposed to the game itself. For me, it's the stuff that's relevant. I want to, for up to me, and hopefully one day it will be up to me completely, but essentially I want the best players in whatever given sport to wear the Indy 11 badge while they're representing, and playing the game. That to me would be a real big win for Indy 11. That takes a lot of investment and takes finding the right people and the people who are really good at those games within your state to represent you. And then obviously we need to think about leagues and expansion and costs. I mean, those are all things we're exploring right now because, people need to make revenue too. And if we're going to have some representation in that space, we have to buy a spot for them in that league and get them playing and having a training facility for them that could be Butler or other places. So, I mean, there's so many great things we can explore in the space and plus Indianapolis being such a thought leader in sports in general, kudos to Butler, kudos to people like the Ryan Vaughn and the guys downtown who are doing great work to make esports even more relevant in our city.
Absolutely. So kind of coming back to traditional sports, and I mean, you can wrap, your experience with this inaugural FIFA Cup that you've just done into this, but what do you think Indy 11 has gotten right about professional competition, if that makes sense?
No, that's great. I think I have a great answer to that. What we've gotten right about professional competition is to realize as a marketer, I have zero to do with what's on the field. I don't have anything to do with the players we sign. I have nothing to do with whether we win or lose. I have no control over that. What I worry about as a marketer and someone who works in marketing and strategy is what can I control? And that is our fan experience. That is our appreciation and celebration of our fans and providing value in a different way. So a lot of our initiatives for 2020, which we'll be launching at some point this year, regardless when we get back to playing, are centered around a rewards program for our fans and really celebrating their milestones as much as we celebrate the milestones of our players on the field. So to be an Indy 11 fan is to be part of a larger family or community. We really feel that. It's part of our messaging when it comes to the core culture of what we do. And it's not a disrespect to the Colts or Pacers. They're very large in scope. I love them both. I went to both Super Bowls, the good one and the bad one. I went to a lot of playoff games for the Pacers when they were in the playoffs against the Lakers all those years ago. Huge fan of both squads, but their fan experiences are not my fan experience. They don't have people singing for 90 minutes with drums and fun and chanting and energy the way a soccer game provides. And those aren't that we provide it. Those are fans that are coming to do it organically. And that's unique to what we do. And we deserve to celebrate those aspects of our game. So I would tell you, and I hope those who are watching realize that, we're a fan experience like no other. And not only that, we make sure that when you do come to a game, you feel you are valued and you belong there. And the sense of inclusiveness we provide is pretty great because we have such an inclusive, with the Brickyard Battalion specifically, and obviously the larger supporter base on the whole, it's super inclusive. So if you're new, never been, you're like one of the family when you walk in the door. So it's a very unique fan experience. And again, I worry about what I can control.
Absolutely. So that was a great answer. It was very insightful. I guess from another marketing standpoint, where's the work that you do for improvement? How are you, stepping that fan experience up? I know you just said the rewards program, but anything else?
It's sincerely fan listening. And like I say, we are a product of our community. So if we're not constantly looking for feedback and asking our fans, what is it you like about our experience? What you don't like our experience? We've been partnering with another university in our city, the other large one downtown, if you will. I don't have to say their name. I think you can apply. I don't want to do that to you, Butler. They've done some great work. They have a sports institute down there where we've done some research with students, and we do pre and post game surveys to ensure that our fan satisfaction scores always stay very high. Because we want to know if you do come to a game that didn't rock and knock your socks off, great. That means we're doing something right. You're more likely to tell somebody else that you had a great time, and the likelihood of you doing that's pretty high, and hopefully we'll see new fans in years to come.
Cool. So back on out to the esports, the reason we do our interviews here. We have Butler here. Obviously, we're a collegiate esports organization. Where do you see your esports market, if you have one? Do you see that age group of, pre-high school, high school, collegiate? Are you looking for that that all-encompassing one? You talked about leagues and different things.
I've researched social leagues, but even with kids, you got to worry about if you're doing a kids social league. Obviously, a little tougher to do when you're dealing with younger ages. I worry about predatory aspects of esports and just being online in general. There's that aspect you have to be concerned about. I like the idea of doing adult leagues. I like the idea of recreational leagues. That's why I think IGL is doing a really cool thing in the market. But I'm still waiting to see where. I said, up to me, I said maybe the best of things playing under the Indy 11 umbrella. And we built some social leagues to help support those things. But you got to have data and things that support that, and finding out who are the best people in your state to play in the league. And right now there's not an overarching platform which everyone plays where everybody's getting the same data. So it's really hard to find those folks right now. There's some folks working in that space as we now to answer those questions in the market. Not only this market, but lots of markets. But right now that esports is just so new in some ways that there's it changes so often. Like I could be talking to you today to find out that 14 other universities tomorrow are opening up esports facilities. Now I know they're not, but at the same time too, if you had told me that you guys were doing it, if I had not known Eric and the team were working on this, I never would have known. So I'd be really curious where things go. And I said, I'm just trying to keep my pulse on it so I can stay ahead of it.
Absolutely. So you said it yourself. It's an ever-evolving world. So I guess I'm asking for your prediction. What do you think the next 3 to 5 years for esports looks like? Where do you think it heads? Where do you think it kind of carves out its own little area?
Well, it's interesting. I said live sports, as things like high def make it so much easier for you to stay home, which I guess is both concerning for what I do and also saddened a little bit. I always want to encourage people to be active. I think when it comes to esports in particular, the two things I try to even stress to my own children is I love the fact you love the e-game, but I also need to get you off your butt because it's a sedentary experience. Does require thought, does require strategy, but it's a sedentary experience. So you definitely want a balance of both, right? So, but I see from a 3 to 5 year experience, I think you're going to see a lot of local broadcasts potentially, and that's something that we're looking at as well, even with esports, like people just in the state, and you're going to see the national stuff. I mean, I'm not looking to buy an Overwatch league at the millions of dollars it costs to be in that league by any means, but how long is Overwatch going to be relevant? I don't know, right? So I also don't want to spend millions of dollars on something I'm never going to see ROI on. So I could see, obviously, more people jumping the esports space. I see high schools and other institutions like universities really spending more time. NCAA probably spends more time around regulation of it. It's just like anything else. When there's money to be made in it, they're going to find a way to regulate it so everybody gets their cut. It's the way it works. I see a lot of regulation coming to the space, but hopefully for good and meaningful things, not just for the sake of the monetization aspects. I think it's about, again, it's like safety, those aspects of it. The data piece could be important, making sure it's getting used appropriately. Again, there's positives and negatives in everything you look at, but that's where I see it going. I see more people looking to get into it. I see more game developers as people learning how to code, like my kids are, for instance. More developers, more people developing cool games, more strategy-based stuff that's out there, right? So many more opportunities down the line for esports. And again, think about how many home consoles are all around the nation, around the world. It's only going to get bigger. I like one thing I have read about a lot as of late is Adidas has technology, who's one of our partners, the thing called GMR, where you actually can insert a chip into your cleat. And the more you are active in the soccer space, the better your FIFA performance is on the field when you play the esport game. So I'm not sure if you have a chance to look at that yet. We're exploring it because we think that could be kind of fun from a storytelling perspective for one of our players to wear the chip, and then have, if they're any FIFA player, how does that affect the on-field performance both ways? So we're looking to have a little bit of fun with that space. And I love that concept of the bleed over there. So we're looking to see what we can do with that.
Absolutely. That's awesome, bleed over. I think so. Do you think that the sports industry and the esports industry are at a place where they will be butting heads essentially? Or do you think they are, I don't know, separate enough that they each have their own space when it comes to broadcasting, marketing, all that kind of stuff? Is it,
Interesting question. I don't know if we butt heads. I think one recognizes game, if you will.
Yeah.
Let's see what I did there. I just tied down this e-gaming thing all in one thing. I'm really good at that. It's because I'm a marketer.
Yeah.
Doug, write that down. The biggest thing with this for me is you're going to see the people with more money turning heads back towards it because you can see it's a way to make money and a way to monetize. For me, the way I look at e-gaming is a way for me to reach more people with Indy 11's brand and message in a very positive, not financial way. We are such a community-based club. I love the concept of inclusivity and community. So two things we do really well, and I want to make sure I'm bringing those concepts to greater groups of people. And if you think about e-gaming, it gets kind of a bad stereotype in terms of who is e-gaming. I know we can talk about that a lot in terms of the kids that can't play football or whatever that perception might be, which I know has changed a lot because some guys who e-game love to go play football and be a great e-gamer. That's fine. But there's a perception of that. And so the inclusivity of those kind of kids who are not athletically inclined to still be really good at something, have the concept of feeling what it means to be on a team, to contribute, to feel a sense of self-satisfaction because they're good at something. Those are all cool things to me, regardless of what you're capable of doing, right? Whether you're an esport athlete or a basketball player, it doesn't matter to me. So those things, again, inclusivity, community, I can bring you into that, through the Indy 11 umbrella. Those are all good things in my opinion.
Awesome. So, one of our last questions here, career advice, right? For students looking to enter the sports or esports marketing industry. You started not in sports, but what would you say to someone who's getting ready who may have just graduated, jumping in? It's
really funny. Today I actually wrote 11 things to our interns who just finished their internship with us, a couple of being some Butler students, surprisingly enough. And I wanted to leave them some notes because I said, I've had now 20 plus years as an employee of somebody else for a long time, right? So I wanted to make sure I was leaving some things behind. I wish people had told me when I started out trying to find a career in terms of, how to navigate what having a career looks like. First and foremost, I tell people all the time, is follow your passion. You just left school. I know you probably have some student debt, things of that nature, but now's your time to take some risk and determine what it is you want to do next. You don't have to have that solution today. You can take some risk. You can go explore things you're interested in. And if you're good at it and you think you can make a career from it, if you work at it hard enough, you'll find a way to do it, right? And if you talk about e-gaming in particular, because it's such a new space, it depends if you want to work for a developer or whatever it might be, there's so few jobs available. And so what you have to be able to do is be patient. You have to be able to go find what that other job is you can do in the interim, learn what you can learn from it, and apply it to the next thing you do. You're not always going to be able to get the job you want right out of the gate. And also realize you're against a lot of competition. There's tons of people graduating right now all trying to fight for jobs with 20% unemployment. Good luck. So what are you trying to do to set yourself apart? What are you doing to build your brand in your world? Are you networking? Are you helping? Are you building your profile on LinkedIn? Are you connecting with the right people? Have you built a website that indicates all the great things you've accomplished since you've been in college? These are things that if I'm interviewing you, I'm going to want to know. Do you know what behavioral interviewing is? Are you prepared when you walk into an interview? Those kind of preparedness shows me how great you might be on a project. So there's so many things I could offer to this space for a student that's graduating right now. But the biggest thing is right now it's a tough market. It's going to be, and right now it might be more about surviving than it might be by getting the exact job that you want. But just realize that nothing in life is permanent except for death and taxes. And so if you don't like what you're doing, go find something else. But I always tell students too at the same time, if you got a job, don't leave it till you got another job. You don't want to chase a job that you don't have. It's easier to hire somebody away from somebody. It feels good when you do that as opposed to hiring somebody who's coming from nowhere. So I have more advice than I have time. I'll tell you that right now, Doug. So
no, that's great. That's great. So last thing that we've been asking everybody we've had on is, who are 2 industry leaders that you believe would be great candidates for an interview series like this that we're putting on, that we could go out and ask for their insight on what's going on?
Hopefully you've already spoken to Tom Dunmore over at IMS. I couldn't say enough good things about him, both as a professional and as a friend, one of my best friends in the world. So I would highly suggest it. He's one of the directors of marketing over at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Happy to connect with him. And I actually love talking to Steve Campbell over at the Indianapolis Colts. He's a communications director there. He's a great human being as well. And Josh over at the Pacers as well. Those are the 3 guys. The guys I'd bounce a lot of ideas off a lot, and that's who I would suggest you speak with as well.
Absolutely. Well, fantastic. Amazing talking to you once again. Thank you, Josh, for coming on.
Happy to
VP of Marketing Strategy at Indy 11. Stay safe, all that good stuff. Stay
Sounds
healthy.
good.
Go Dogs.